Welcome into another episode of Collective Knowledge. I am your host, Shane Barrett. You can find me on Twitter at FFShaneB. And joining me tonight is the one, the only amigo, the founder of Familia FFB on Twitter and the website www.familiaffb. Correct me if I'm wrong there later. And a fantasy football nerd and analyst and former Dodgers publicity director, Jorge Martin. Jorge, ¿cómo estás?
Oh, mi amigo, muy bien, muy bien. Gracias, gracias. Es un gran placer. Thank you so much for inviting me. This is awesome. I've enjoyed your stuff for a long time. Obviously, we got connected about a little more than 6 months ago, and it's just it's been cool being in a community of people who are like-minded and as you said, fellow nerds.
Absolutely, man. Glad to have you on here. I'm really excited to have this episode, and I'm gonna try and start it off with a little homage to you. But before we do that, we got to pay the bills. So we're gonna throw it to our quick ad read, and that is for Thrive Fantasy. So come prop up on Thrive Fantasy this football season. It is a daily fantasy sports and esports app for player props. You choose 10 out of the 20 available player props to build your lineup, and each prop is assigned a fantasy value for both the over and the under based on how likely it is to hit. Hit the most props, rack up the most points, and win a share of the prize pool. I'm pretty sure I have actually won money every single week that I've done Thrive, except for maybe 2 this NFL season. And those weeks it was really, really close. So it's really easy to win money too. I'm actually up, I can't remember, but I'm up a lot this season for what I initially put in. If you use code FFShaneB when signing up on the website, which is www.thrivefantasy.com, or on the App Store or Play Store, you will get a 100% deposit match up to, I believe, $100 on your first deposit. So go sign up for Thrive today, and let's prop up. All right, amigo, are you ready?
Yeah, hold on. I got my drink ready for you.
Oh yeah, what are you drinking tonight? I know you you wanted to discuss it. So what are you drinking tonight?
It's called Smog City, and it's a brewery down here in LA, just outside of LA.
Nice.
And it's their Smogtoberfest. So a little something left over. It's an IPA. It's I bought a 4-pack, and it's just so tasty, so tasty. So, mi amigo, salud to you, and muchas gracias for the invite.
Okay, so ¿cuándo empezaste jugando fantasy football?
When did I start playing fantasy football? 1990.
Oh wow.
So
okay.
yes. I just graduated college, and actually the starting point was about 6 months before. One guy who's still a close friend of mine invited me to play a fantasy baseball league.
Okay,
and it's old school, National League only, rotisserie style.
Cool.
We've now I think you were going to ask me, is that league still going? The
Yeah.
baseball league is still going. Now the
Okay.
football league, we are I love asking this question. The very first player I ever picked was Christian Okoye. I had like the
Okay.
6th or 7th pick. He just come off a 1,400-yard season, and
Nice.
and well, I wish I had him in 1989, because 1990 he didn't even get 1,000 yards, and and he got like 6 or 7 touchdowns. It was a total letdown. But it hooked me then. The baseball league is still going with
Awesome.
most of the guys, and it's just though I had some incredible heartbreak. I lost the league this year in the seventh inning of the last game of the season.
No.
Because some pitcher who I put into my lineup thinking he was going to get a start against the Red Sox, a guy for the Nationals, he got skipped in the start, so I thought he's done. I had gone. It's the greatest race we've ever had in our league. We had 4 teams that we literally traded first place in the last week of the season, and I was in first.
That's awesome.
I went into first place on Friday night, and I'd been in first place most of the second half of the season.
Yeah.
But the guys kept creeping up. I mean, I had a couple injuries late at the end of the season, but I looked like I actually went ahead at the in like the third inning, and it looked like I was in for good. And then this guy goes in, gives up a 3-run jack, and it dropped me in ERA and WHIP, and
No.
I lost the league by a point. Now, and I went back and I did the whole butterfly effect. He was the last guy I was going to start that week. He was my last guy. I was between him and an outfielder for the Giants. I thought, okay, I thought I need strikeouts, and I need wins, because everything was so damn close.
Yeah.
And so I put this guy in, kind of held my nose. The guy that I sat ended up hitting a 3-run home run, and I ended up being 2 RBIs out of a point, which that 2 RBIs would have won me the league. Those 3 RBIs would have won me the league if I would have just not. Yeah, it's tormenting me still. But I'll tell you, from that point on, fantasy sports always captivated me. That baseball league is still going on. The football league, we stopped it for a while there in the 90s, and then probably about like 6 or 7 years ago, there were, it was like late August. I think it was like the Wednesday before Labor Day weekend.
Okay.
One of the guys, one of the OG members of that baseball league said, "Hey, you know what? Should we do a football league?" And then all of a sudden it was just like several hands went up. We had 10 guys. We made it a 2 QB league, and it's so different because like back in 1990, feels like the Stone Age. We kept stats off the newspaper.
Yeah, I was going to ask you.
Yeah, and it was touchdowns only, touchdowns and field goals. Touchdowns and kicker points, and it was really, it was those first 10 years of playing fantasy sports. It was all manual labor until the internet came in, and then all of a sudden you started seeing the cool stuff with using yardage and all the other bonus points that you can have. And it's just, oh God, just phenomenal to play, to play. And just to think about that. I've talked to people who've played at that point and are still playing now. And it's just, and we marvel, and it's like, wow, now we can't wait to open up the app on our phone to see what our guys did, whereas before we had to wait until the next day. It's like, oh, wait a second, was that handoff actually a shovel pass and it became a touchdown pass instead? Hilarious. And like fantasy content at the time was just was so hit and miss, and just incredible. It feels like the Stone Age since then, even though we did have computers and we did have cars that weren't pulled by horses, and but yeah, it's amazing. There's a big part of me that really wishes I'd gotten into fantasy content at that point, because now a friend of mine and I, we were talking about this the other day, and he started to write some fantasy content for a now defunct magazine, and he said, "Yeah, I'd be a gazillionaire right now if I'd only kept the fantasy if the internet had been developed like around that time instead of 15 years after he wrote his first fantasy football article."
Yeah, I don't know if you know Hutchinson Brown, but kid's 15 and is starting to produce content, and I'm like, kid, you've got vision that I like never would have had. You've got cojones that I never would have had to put yourself out on the internet at 15 giving people fantasy football advice. So that's what, like when you said you wish you started back then, that's immediately what I thought of was Hutchinson. That kid is awesome. I love him.
He's gonna go so far.
Yeah,
he's gonna do so well. And when I saw that when I first met him via Twitter, which is how most of us meet, I sat there and I was like, wow, you're a year older than my 14-year-old twin daughters, and 2 years younger than my 17-year-old. So so cheers, my friend. I'll buy you your first beer in 6 years.
Yeah, right. Awesome. So I'm gonna kind of combine this question into two.
Sure.
So, with your oldest fantasy football league, what are the league settings? And then what are your favorite league settings? So, you know me, I'm a degenerate. I'm in, I think I've counted right, 38 leagues.
Wow.
So I don't know if you're in as many as I am, which I'd be surprised if you were. But let's say you're overloaded on leagues like I am, and you can only add one more league. What are your favorite settings that will make you break the bank and go one more league?
Wow. My let's see. It's kind of it's close. Well, the oldest league is actually a Dodger front office league,
Oh,
and
cool.
that one's I joined in 2006, my first year with the team, and it originally started around 1999 2000. It actually started with several players being in the league, and
Very
then
cool.
over the next 2 or 3 years, it became a front office only league.
Okay.
And I'm actually co-commissioner on that league with a buddy of mine. And probably about, when I left the team in 2013, we decided to actually make it a front office. And, it used to be you had to be in the front office, at least one person had to be in the front office. 12-team league, single quarterback, 2 QB. We got rid of the kickers this year. By a 7-5, but it's actually a 14-team league now. It started 12 and now it's 14. We got rid of kickers by an 8-6 vote.
Wow.
Yeah, it's two running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, two flex, and we kept the defense in for this year. Love the settings. We do 6-point TDs for quarterbacks to kind of make them a little bit more, but a lot of the other settings are pretty normal. My family league, which we're so big that we started a second league this year. The first league is standard. Yeah, my family is so big, and we love to kind of poke fun at how big our family is. My generation is 40 grandchildren. So I'm number 3 I'm number 3 in the line. So my primos, my cousins, I think my cousin Hector is somewhere like around number 9 or 10. Wow. And my cousin Ricky, primo Ricky, he's like number 33 or something like that. So he's where there's a 20-year gap between us. But yeah, I mean it's 40 grandchildren.
I was gonna say that's similar to my dad's side of the family. My oldest cousin is 20 years older than I am, but like 10 years younger than my dad. Because my dad is the youngest of 5. And we don't have 40, but we're like, and I think I gotta remember where I am. I'm at like one of the youngest in the line, but yeah, like my oldest cousin is 20 years older than me, but 10 years younger than my dad.
Oh man. Well, the generation of my kids, our kids' generation is pushing 50. So Christmas is amazing. So I mean, we get like we blew past 100 people at Christmas. We're like 100. Like I think the biggest one was like 125 or something people who came over the course of the night, and that's a lot of tamales, my friend. It's a lot of tamales. but yeah, our getting back to the question, they do standard. My cousin, my primo, the commissioner, he insists that we keep standard scoring, which drives me nuts. But I sit there and I keep saying, oh, can we do PPR? And then there's so many people who are, oh, let's keep the tradition. Oh, you'll have the big advantage if we do that because you play PPR. And I'm like, oh God, you guys are killing me. But yeah, that one's single quarterback. But then this year we launched a Superflex league. Nice. There, which I love Superflex. Since the league that I started playing about 7 years ago, we stared doing Superflex. Just I'm like, oh, I'm just a junkie. I'm like, oh God, because I've always loved quarterbacks and receivers.
Me too.
And from like even that first league, my stack was Boomer Esiason and Eddie Brown. They had a pretty good season. They had a pretty good season that year. So I've been someone who tried to stack my quarterback and receiver since then. But yeah, so that's why I just want to go Superflex leagues. In fact, most of the leagues I join now are Superflex leagues. And if you would tell me what would be a league now, I'm now in the 38 leagues. Do you count best ball?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Because if we're counting best ball leagues, I'm around 21 or 22 or something like that. So, so I would think, but yeah, so if you were to get me to what's a league that I could get into that I don't already do is auction leagues.
Okay.
I love
they're fun.
Oh, because to me, there's nothing better than the auction. My baseball league, the one I told you, the one that I've been in, that league actually has been in existence since 1986 and going strong. Just we haven't had to get a new owner in about 15 years.
Nice.
Just it's like every draft day is our Christmas, and probably about half of us went to college together.
Cool.
And just a blast. But I haven't done an auction football league yet, because I just haven't found the right mix of people that I'd want to play with. And maybe next year I'll jump in, because I don't want to just do it and I don't know the people. I'd love to be able to sit in a room and just kind of like, face off, and just, there's nothing better than just the head-to-head face off. And you're just kind of like, okay, I've got a boatload of money in my coffers. And it's like, okay, I'm going to go $1 more.
Yeah.
Just, I love that.
I joined my first one with Jay Felicio. It was his home league. And it was my first auction league, and I had a ton of fun. But I'm 2-7 in that league because Christian McCaffrey and Clyde Edwards-Helaire it's just been injured. Or like I'll score 150 and I'll lose by like 10 because the person scored 160, and it's like, can I catch a break, please?
That's me in the Scott Fish Bowl this year. I've lost 3 shootouts, and I've had a couple of horrific injuries because I had Clyde Edwards-Helaire and David Montgomery and guys like that just kind of like and Kareem Hunt, they all laid waste to my running back depth. And so I just sit there. I'm like, oh man. I lost a bunch of, I lost 3 shootouts early, one by like fractional points. That was heartbreaking. That was to Colm Kelly, who's Pat Fitzmaurice's producer on his podcast. And we're in the U2 division, but oh god. Maybe the one thing that I would want to do in an auction league is I'd want to be in the same room with the people, because I don't want to be. Was that auction league? Was that at some sports bar, some wings place?
No, we were at Jay's house.
Oh, at Jay's house. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think there was one. I think there was a league that Jay was telling me about where they did the
they did it. He actually did a draft the next day in Charlotte, I believe, at a sports bar with a bunch of other North Carolina analysts.
Yes, and in fact I know, because I had done, when I did my beat writer series during the summer, Jeff Hazley, of Football Guys, he had told me about this sports bar and how they had these like super incredible nachos that were just heaven on earth, and you don't need to eat for 3 days afterward because they're so filling. I think he even sent me a picture of it, and I was just like, oh, my mouth was watering. But and I think that was the sports bar they were going to.
That was the day after the draft of our auction draft. So all right, so next question, Jorge. When did you start making content for fantasy football? And I'm emphasizing the fantasy football because I'm going to ask you a question later.
Sure. Fantasy football content. Official start date Cinco de Mayo 2020.
Nice. Very cool.
And it actually, that was the launch of our Familia FFB podcast.
Okay.
We it was my two primos, my cousins, and we recorded 2 episodes at my mom's house, and it
Nice.
was the first time we'd seen each other because it was in the middle of COVID.
Yeah.
The first time that we'd seen one another in several months, and yeah, we bought mics, and this all started actually with a family argument over fantasy football. As I said, we have a 12-team league, and I think it was even the previous Christmas, and we're at the table. We've got plates full of tamales. We got beers going on. We got the beer courage, and Christmas is close to the fantasy championship.
Yep.
Arguments are going on, and people are just animated and throwing Spanglish at each other, insulting one another, and it was all well thought out, and sometimes it was kind of funny. And I sat there and I said, man, this could be interesting if we ever recorded it. And so I talked to my two cousins, Hector and Ricky. So what do you guys think? And it's like, let's do it. And
Awesome.
so we decided to try and launch around at Cinco de Mayo, because it was right after the NFL draft. So we had some content to talk about at that point. So we started at that point. I launched the familiaffb.com site right around then. I think I'd started writing some articles like a few days before, just to have some content up there. But it was just it hooked me. It was phenomenal. I just God, I mean being in this community, it's like being welcomed into just a massive league where everybody kind of thinks alike. And it really reminded me of the first time I worked for a newspaper, the LA Daily News out here. I was covering high school sports, and it was just kind of like, after everybody was done, people would sit around and just kind of talk sports. We'd talk about the Lakers or the Dodgers. We'd talk about the NFL. And I sat there and I was like, oh my God, I'm in my community. Yeah. That's what it felt like to be in the fantasy football community, when you're going that extra mile in the analysis and the arguments, and it's just it's wonderful, and I've enjoyed it, and I've learned so damn much about target, about a target percentage, routes run, snap percentage. I mean, stuff that I hadn't really looked at very closely before, and just really seeing how it translates. Because I've always been a numbers nerd. Because of the baseball, because the years that I worked in baseball, it was just baseball. I think sometimes is even beyond what football is. In fact, I had Graham Barfield on my podcast about 6 months ago, and he's also an avid baseball fan, and he told me, he goes, he thinks that he said, I think analytics has kind of broken baseball, and I said, I think it has, or at the very least, it's ended any pitchers throwing a complete game in the World Series.
So let me ask you this, Jorge, because
sure,
I don't know if I won't say I'm a baseball purist, but does that bother you? Pitchers not being able to pitch a complete game because of analytics or whatever, or is it just me?
No, it bothers it bothers me to no end. Like, I'm a dyed-in-the-wool Dodger fan. Working for the team was was a childhood dream that I didn't think was possible, and then here I am. I'm Peter Pan for 8 years. But I grew up seeing the great pitchers start and end the games. I mean, the guys that got. I mean, some of the all-time greats. I mean, do you have a team you grew up rooting for?
Cubs.
Baseball team. Cubs. Okay, so I mean, gosh, I mean, I mean, it's before
Kerry Wood, Mark Pryor.
Those guys were absolute studs who would just unfortunately, Mark Pryor. He may have thrown a little too much too soon, and his career was never the same. But I mean, you saw those guys. I mean, Kerry Wood's 20 strikeout game is considered one of the most dominant pitching. I think it's the number 2 dominant pitching performance in baseball history.
Correct me if I'm wrong too. I think it's the record for strikeouts in a game by a pitcher.
It's tied. Right? Yeah, it's tied. Yeah. He tied with Roger Clemens and Roger Clemens and Randy Johnson.
Yep, that's what I thought.
Tom Seaver had 19, and but it was like his third major league start. But it was just it was incredible. But to me, there is nothing more magisterial than the starting pitcher who's on the mound and he's just rolling and he's throwing. I mean, he's throwing a no hitter. I think now the only time a pitcher is allowed to go is if he's throwing a no hitter. But last year in the World Series, I'm watching Blake Snell in Game 6 of the World Series, absolutely shoveling on the Dodgers. Yep. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching the game and I'm like, they're not going to touch this guy. They're not going to touch this guy. And
then they pull him.
They pull him. And I sat there and I was like, and I remember two things. I remember looking at my phone and being like, okay, it was Mookie Betts and Corey Seager were the next two batters. They had already struck out twice each, before him. And I remember Mookie Betts having a look of like just incredulity, thinking they're kind of like they're pulling him.
They pulled him. Yeah.
And that's when they knew we're going to win. So to me, it's I mean, I think about dominant pitching performances that I've seen in the World Series where the starter comes in and just blows them away. I mean,
when the Cubs won the World Series, Corey Kluber was untouchable. But by I think it was Game 7, it was his third game pitched in the series, and he just gotten gassed at that point. But like in games 1 and 4, we couldn't touch him. And I was just like, if we have to face Kluber again, we're like, there's no way we're gonna win.
I sat there. Yeah, I thought the same thing. But I mean, both those pitching staffs, that's one of my favorite World Series. Both those pitching staffs were just spent by the end. I mean, it was like Andrew Miller had nothing left, or Aroldis Chapman had nothing left. and I kept sitting there. I'm like, why are they, and it was Kyle Hendricks was pitching so well, and they pulled him. I don't even think he qualified for the win.
That. I remember that one.
And like John Lester did not want to go in with runners on base. He didn't want to come into an inning. He wanted, if he was going to come in, he wanted to start a fresh inning. And Joe Madden put him in, and of course he gave up a couple of runs that way. And it was just kind of like, oh my God, you listen to your guys. But you know what? And it's just, I mean, I always think of one of my favorite ones, and this is a story I got a little inside information on.
Okay.
Is Game 3 of the 1981 World Series, 40 years ago. Fernando Valenzuela, who is beyond deity, went in the Mexican community. He 20 years old. He just made an amazing rise that's never been seen since. He won his first 8 starts, pitched 9 innings in every one of the 8 starts, threw 5 shutouts in there. But after 8 starts, his ERA was 0.50. I mean, it was just the most amazing thing I've ever seen. The guy didn't speak English. In every interview, had to have a translator. The whole country just became Fernando Valenzuela fans, even though they knew nothing about him other than he was born in Mexico and that he was 20 and that he was a little, chubby. But he ended up with the Cy Young Award that year and almost won the MVP as a rookie. But he gets to Game 3 of the World Series, and the Dodgers are down 2-0, and he's getting lit. It's the third inning. He's given up 4 runs, and Tommy Lasorda, God rest his soul, passed away in January. The legendary Dodger manager. He told me this story. He said that when he went to the mound to talk to Fernando, he told him in Spanish. He said, I'll tell him in Spanish and then in English. He said, Fernando, si tú no permites otra carrera, nosotros vamos a ganar 8-4. The translation is, Fernando, if you don't give up on, we're going to win 8-4. It was 4-2 or 4-1 at that point. It was third inning. Fernando, Tommy says, in perfect English, looks at me with kind of like a scrunched face and says, "Are you sure?" In English, in perfect English. Fernando found his rhythm. Absolutely, he did not give up another run. I think he retired like the last 9 batters in a row. Just his screwball was just dancing all over the place. And now he'd have been pulled in the third inning, but no, now he's a legend for life.
Yep.
Jack Morris for Minnesota Twins
Yep.
throws 10 shutout innings. That we're never going to see that again.
No.
He's a legend for life. He was already, just I mean, I'm sure in Minnesota now he still doesn't have to buy a beer. But yeah, and that was one of those games where he even said there was no way they were pulling me out of the game. It could have gone another 5-6 innings. I'd have still been out there. I don't even know what his pitch count was on that one. I know Fernando's pitch count in his game was like 147 pitches.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, analytics would have the analytics guys would have
lost their minds.
Oh, they would have gone crazy.
Oh my. Okay, so you kind of explained what made you start, which was you guys were at a Christmas party with your primos. You guys were having a trash talking session, and that led to Familia FFB. Do you remember what your first topic was for Familia FFB?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was we just had the NFL draft, and we broke down the quarterbacks.
Nice.
So we broke down the quarterbacks who just gotten selected, and we did we told some stories about kind of like the origin. We told our origin story at that point. We actually we did 3 shows that first week where we went down the quarterbacks, then we went down the running backs, and then we went down the wide receivers, and just kind of talking about the fantasy implications for the landing spots for each one. And then we just kind of meandered into various different topics throughout the summer months. And we were audio only at that point. We started YouTube about 6 months ago. We're up around 50, we're like 51 or 52 YouTube shows up till now.
Nice. Very cool. All right, so last fantasy question.
Sure.
What is your favorite thing about the fantasy football community?
Oh man, well, I kind of alluded to it before. It's just I mean, just the inclusiveness, the way everybody is just really taking each other in. It's that to me is special. I mean, because in a lot of ways, people can look at one another and be like, oh, we're competitors or something like that. But no, it's just everybody wants to, wants to share knowledge, share ideas, be on one another's shows. I'd love to have you on Familia FFB. I've been bad on the invites, but yeah, consider this an invite that needs to happen soon. But I love the sharing of ideas, and you know what? I love the kind of like the back and forth on different ideas. I did a series like the last week before Labor Day weekend. I had various people on.
Yep.
And I had one show that had from our networking group, the Thieves. Oh, there's my shirt.
Nice.
Our Twitter group. I had probably about six people on, and there were all these different. I hadn't had anybody on who had done zero RB. And Calvin Shoemake and Dan Turner are both zero RB zealots, and it was great. And my primo Ricky was on the show, and he was just like, "You guys are crazy! How could you do this? How could you just forget about the running backs?" And it was awesome. We went like an hour and a half. It was just, in fact, I want to listen to it back because I think with all the running back injuries that have been happening this year, I think I maybe start. I've always been a hero. I've been a hero RB guy.
You and me both.
Yeah, but I'm starting to. A lot of my heroes have let me down this year, and but it's I love that, and you know what? I love the not just the inclusiveness, but I also love that everybody wants to help.
Yeah,
I mean, I love the Polly's playoff. I love that I'm playing in Polly's playoff with you, and I love to have been able to contribute to Alzheimer's. And I mean, I have a couple of people in my life who are suffering from that affliction, and it's two people who very one lady is like a second mother to me,
Mhm.
and another her name is Sylvia. Another one, his name is John. He's the father of an old girlfriend of mine, and I dated her for 4 years, and they treated me like a son the whole time. And still, when I would see them, they're just, it's like we hadn't seen, it's like we'd seen each other a week ago. It's just,
Yeah.
but yeah, but I love that. I love the way how everything came out of the Scott Fish Bowl, and I play in a couple other charity leagues. I just can't say no to the charity aspect. I think it's just a wonderful thing, and I love the I don't even know if thrill of helping people
Yeah.
through fantasy football, and it's awesome. I just love it. I just love it. I mean, to think that kids are going to be getting Christmas presents because of us playing in the Scott Fish Bowl
Yeah.
oh man, love it. Love it. It gives
Yeah.
me, it makes me want to play even harder.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, it's I love this community. It can be a little bitter and petty and angsty and so many different words, but when it really boils down to it, everyone has a good heart and has good intentions, I think, in the community to truly help people. And like you said, with Scott Fish Bowl, Polly's Playoff, Warrior Bowl, all the different charity tournaments, um, help people that we don't even know and aren't even going to meet necessarily. So, yeah, I love that aspect of it too.
I've got a funny story about fantasy football. One of the first people that I met through the fantasy football community is Mauricio Gutierrez.
Okay.
He's basically the Mexican Matthew Berry. He's one of the godfathers, the padrino of fantasy football in Mexico, and he was on the Yahoo fantasy podcast with Liz Losa, who's
Nice.
Peruvian, and in English. And I reached out to him, sent him an email, and struck up a friendship. And he invited me on his podcast. He's got two podcasts, one Estadio Fantasy, which is his own, and La Cueva de Fan, which is another one. And through that, they invited me to play in a Scott Fishbowl type of league. So I was playing with people from Ukraine and Brazil, and it was just
Whoa.
it was incredible. The chat room. I mean, everybody spoke Spanish, but it was great. Seeing the arguments in Spanish that were happening and the trash talk, it was phenomenal. But I was on their show one time, and someone sent me a Twitter message from one town over from where my parents were born.
No
So
kidding.
in Jalisco, Mexico. Yeah, it's so it just, I mean, you sit there and everybody kind of has their thoughts of what is big in other countries, and fantasy football is huge in Mexico, throughout Latin America, Spain. I found out through Mauricio that there are leagues that are kickers and punters only. So
Linda would be in heaven.
yes, she would just be, she'd be the G. She'd be the godmother of the whole thing. She'd be fantastic. She'd win every year. But yeah, incredible. I sat there and I was like, would there be arguments over Johnny Hecker and Justin Tucker? And he said, yes, yes, yes. Can you imagine the auctions at that point? But yeah,
Oh my
it
gosh.
really showed me how I always knew football was a worldwide game,
Yeah.
and it really showed me that fantasy football is a worldwide game. And Mauricio even told me, he said, he told me, you need to keep going, because we don't have a lot of Latinos doing this. And he said, you're the only Latino I know who's leaning into, your culture,
Yeah.
but doing it in English. And he said that the one thing that really stuck to me is that of the people who are avid fantasy football players in Mexico and throughout Latin America, and throughout Spanish-speaking Latin America, 80 to 85% of them speak English and consume their content in English, because
Awesome.
for the longest time there was no content to consume in Spanish. And Mauricio was one of the first ones, and he only started about 6 or 7 years ago. So and that's why he said, just keep doing it and they'll find you. And some people have found us. I'd love the more to find us, but that's why we got to keep plowing. We got to keep pushing that boulder up the hill, right?
Absolutely. Man, I love that. Yeah, and like just like an example of it being a worldwide game. Last year was actually my first year in Scott Fish Bowl, and I was in Scott Fish's division, so that was intimidating. But at the same time, so cool. But one of the guys we had was in Australia, so like it was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and he was just waking up, and it was like, all right, like at like 11 o'clock my time when I was going to bed, and he's like, all right, I'll see you guys tomorrow at 3. So,
Unreal. And you
and
know
then
what?
like,
That's when I learned about the 8-hour clock,
yeah,
or however long the clock is, because my division, I was in the U2 division. There are, I think, at least 2, maybe 3 people living in Ireland
yeah, cool,
who were in that division with us,
yeah,
and it just phenomenal. It was it was really cool. In fact, one of them beat me in a shootout, and the other one I beat in a shootout this week. So
nice,
yes, thank you, Justin Herbert. So Justin
yeah,
Herbert and Keenan Allen. So they carried me on that one.
I love
A
Justin
stack. I
Herbert.
told you I love stacks.
Yep, yes, you did. All right, so last question before we go to rapid fire.
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about yourself outside of fantasy football. And really, what I want to know personally is you were the publicity director for the Dodgers. Tell us how you got that gig and what it was like, and then anything else personally you'd like to share about family, friends, whatever.
Sure. Well, I shared a little bit about family. As I said, my parents are Mexican immigrants. My whole family. My mom is first to 12 kid is number one of 12 kids, and they came to the United States when it was just 8 of them, and it was my grandparents had 4 more here, and yeah,
Awesome.
it's an incredible. We had a family wedding over the weekend, and it was just, I mean, we hadn't seen each other in a long time because of COVID, and it was
Yeah.
just, everything just fell back into place. But I love family. I'm married 21 years. My wife Shannon, we met back in 1998, and met at a friend's birthday party, and right around Halloween of that year, and it just 2 years later we were married, and got married at September 9th, 2000. And my wife Shannon and I have 3 daughters. Our oldest daughter Solana is 17. She's a senior in high school, so we're going through
Awesome.
all the but glorious. She's got straight A's, so
Atta
she's gonna have a lot
girl.
of college options. Plays 3 sports: volleyball, soccer, and lacrosse. So
Atta girl. What position
um,
in soccer?
she's played forward and midfield,
Okay.
so kind of
I
a
was
little bit of
actually
both.
a goalie.
Oh, awesome. My youngest, one of my twin daughters, Rianne, was a pretty talented goalie herself.
Nice.
So,
Very cool.
so yeah, she kept playing goalie, and she didn't like it, but because she liked the action, she liked the running,
Yeah.
and she was actually an excellent midfielder. And
Awesome.
but they kept putting her at goalie for like 1 quarter, and she's like, it would annoy her. I'm like, okay, I understand, I like you better out in the field, but I want to see that your coach needs you there because you're good.
Yeah.
um she and our other daughter Larissa, they were born in 2007, so they're 14. They're freshmen in high school, so they're identical twins. And being a girl dad just opens your eyes to so many things.
Yes, it does.
I've apologized to a couple ex-girlfriends profusely for my behavior at certain points in my life. I kidded that I kidded them. I said, one of you or multiple of you have voodoo dolls about me, and you guys are all just laughing your heads off right now, watching me. I've communicated with a couple of them until talking about like my oldest daughter now dating, and they've had a couple of chuckles over it. But no, being a girl dad is fantastic. It's one of the things, that the thing I love about it is they can be, it's not letting them get pigeonholed into any one, thing, being, kind of, kind of cutesy and delicate, or being rough and tumble tomboy. They combine both.
Yeah.
There have been plenty of times that they've gone and kicked butt, gotten dirty on a soccer field, gotten all sweaty, and then they come home and they clean up and they put on a nice dress, and they're, all of a sudden you fix their hair and they're nice and they're very girly. And I think it's great. I love that we raise them with no possibility. It's like there's nothing that's impossible. Just do, go do whatever you can. And, one of my big things that I'd say is, don't tell them no, but let life tell them no. And, let them figure out. But for now, we're just going to celebrate them. We're going to support them. We're going to go to their games. Our twins they're also talented swimmers. So they're,
awesome.
They're going to play swim and probably play water polo. And it's just, just being their dad. And you mentioned the Dodgers. So it was around Thanksgiving in 2005. A friend of mine sent me an email, and it was a job posting. And he said, "I think this is you." And I looked at it, and actually it wasn't publicity director. It was for publications.
Okay.
And I went and I interviewed, and it was just, gosh, I mean, I'm at Dodger Stadium, a place that I've been going to since I was 7 years old.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there, and I'm just, I interviewed with the VP Communications, and I also interviewed with the Public Relations Director. The Public Relations Director at the time happened to be the son of one of my favorite journalism professors in college. And I knew of him, but I'd never met him.
Yeah.
And he even asked me, "Did you ever have my mom in class?" And I said, "Yes, I had her for 2 semesters, got A's both years. And she's one of my favorites." And so we had a great interview. And 2 days before Christmas that year, I got offered the job. And it was just, I sat there and I was like, wow, I just kind of like, I'm going to be working at Dodger Stadium. And it was just, it was incredible. All of my childhood heroes came back to life.
Yeah.
Because they were all like, I grew up in an era where several Dodgers became iconic. Unfortunately, none of them, only one of them went to the Hall of Fame, Don Sutton. But, I came of age with Steve Garvey, Ron Say, Davey Lopes, Bill Russell, Dusty Baker was one of my guys. And I actually met Dusty Baker and Steve Garvey at the same time. And awesome. Dusty, I'm sitting there, I'm like, guys, you don't understand how cool this is right now, because you two are 2 parts of my Dodger Holy Trinity with Fernando Valenzuela, whom I met the day before. And
that's cool.
And I sat there, and I'm just telling them, like, because I was doing interviews with them for some historical pieces that I was working on. But it was incredible. I mean, just Tommy Lasorda, who's just a larger than life character. And he just basically adopted my daughters as like his grandchildren. He just cool. Was, he would just kind of like, he could not give them enough gifts. He couldn't sign enough memorabilia for them or bobbleheads. And he just told them to call me Uncle. He said, "You call me Uncle Tommy." And whenever I'd bring him to a game, and they would say, "Can we go see Uncle Tommy? Can we go see Uncle Tommy?" "Yes, we're going to go see Uncle Tommy." And he would give them Eskimo kisses, and just be there. We even have a picture of us, Christmas 2008. Tommy dressed up as Santa Claus, and he was taking pictures with season ticket holders. We got to take a picture, a Christmas picture with Tommy Claus, and it was just we still have it. It's one of my favorite, my most cherished things. I actually got another photo with Tommy, Joe Torre, and Don Mattingly on the day that Mattingly was named manager of the team. But yeah, I mean, it was just it was crazy. Every day it seemed like it was just you were always on, because every day was unique. but every day something incredible could happen. Someone incredible could be at the stadium. Tom Hanks one time was coming out of a suite, and I'm walking back to my office during a game, and he's just walking out of the suite to go to the bathroom, and then all of a sudden it's like 10 people just pounced on him wanting pictures and autographs and everything, and he's just like, "Oh, kids, don't do drugs, but I really gotta pee. I'll be right back." And so I just kind of I sat there. I was like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna sit here and I'll sit here and wait, because I see all these people, and I think someone's going to need to kind of run interference for them." Vin Scully, the legendary 67 years, the voice of the Dodgers. The guy knew my name. The guy was nice to me.
Cool.
Took pictures with my family. My mother and my mother-in-law, huge Dodger fans, both of them. And they have pictures of Vin because of me. And he could not have been nicer. He has this incredible gift where everybody in the room, he makes them feel like the most important person in the world. And I don't know how he did it. It just was so natural, and just was one of the kindest, some people had told me, they tell you, they say don't meet your heroes because they're going to disappoint
you. Yeah.
But they told me Vin is the only person who surpasses everything that you would want your hero to be. Cool. And he was. And Jaime Jarrin, also a Hall of Fame announcer, one of the greatest moments of my life. This man is the Spanish voice of the Dodgers, the Spanish Vin Scully. He's been announcing for the Dodgers almost over 60 years. I went to take my dad and his childhood friend and a couple of my uncles to meet Jaime and Fernando Valenzuela, who was also who's still an announcer. And Jaime said in Spanish, "Estamos muy orgullosos de que tu hijo está trabajando aquí. We're so proud to have your son working here." And I sat there and I was like, "Oh my God," And my dad is saying, cool. My dad is hearing this from this legend in front of his best friend since he was 5 years old. My dad at that time was in the late 60s. And it was just like for them to hear that, just I sat there and I was like, it's easily one of the greatest moments of my life. And awesome. It turned out his best friend, who was dealing with cancer at the time, it was the last time he ever went to a Dodger game. He passed away about 6 months later. And at his funeral, they talked about the fact that was one of his greatest moments, was to meet those guys. Cool. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, this man at this age, just incredible. I could go on for days. But it really was, I was there for 8 years. Unfortunately, they did, when they brought in the new ownership, they started wanting to bring in their own people. And, but the great thing is I've kept a lot of contacts. I actually was able to the Dodgers gave me the okay to republish an article that I wrote on Clayton Kershaw and Matthew Stafford that I wrote back in 2009, when Matthew was about to be picked by the Detroit Lions, talking about their childhood friendship. And it was, everybody go to familiafp.com and just type in Clayton Kershaw or Matthew Stafford, and you'll see we actually put in Clayton Kershaw, because if you put Matthew Stafford, you'll see a bunch of other articles you might see a bunch of other articles first, but and the moms just told great stories at the time. It was just phenomenal. That's phenomenal. Awesome.
That's really cool. All right, Jorge, you ready for rapid fire?
Vámonos. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. Favorite NFL team?
Rams.
Nice. Favorite sport that is not football?
Oh, baseball.
Okay. Favorite food?
Ooh. Well, it's going to be my birthday next week, and every year on my birthday, my mom makes enchiladas. So it's... Nice. Yeah, mom's homemade enchiladas. I'd starve myself that day to just gorge myself. Oh, it's magical.
Love it. Favorite sports movie?
Bull Durham. I love the two things that I love the most about that movie. The scene where the monologue where
Mhm.
I love where that ends. I love deep soft wet kisses that last for 3 days, and then there's the mound scene where they're trying to figure out all the they're trying to figure out all the issues that everybody's having, and Robert Wool says candlesticks make a great gift, and da, 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 da. So love Bull Durham, love Bull Durham.
Awesome. Favorite non-sports movie?
Oh, The Princess Bride.
Oh, great choice.
I
Great
love The
choice.
Princess Bride. I could see that I could see that every day for the rest of my life. I actually got lucky one time. Rob Reiner, his son, I didn't even realize it. His son was I didn't realize his son was Rob Reiner's son. It was just a kid named Jake. And he wanted to borrow something from me, so I went to go take it to him, and there's Rob Reiner, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh my God. So I showed Jake how to use my micro recorder, because he's working now to try and be an announcer. He's got his own podcast. And I show him how to do it. And it's probably about 20 minutes to game time. I turned to Rob, who's a huge Dodger fan. I said, I'm a huge fan, Mr. Reiner. And The Princess Bride is one of my favorite movies of all time. And he gave me 20 minutes of gold stories about kind of like the DVD behind the scenes.
Yeah.
One of the greatest stories was not told there, where he said that he told me that there's no that every day that he comes into contact with people, he hears at least once that somebody has a Princess Bride story. And Princess Bride, Spinal Tap, and When Harry Met Sally are the movies he hears about the most. But the story was, his favorite story was, this woman had been caught in a snowdrift, and she was caught in, it turns out she was caught in a snowdrift for 6 hours, and she knew she needed to keep herself awake. To keep herself awake, she was reciting different scenes from The Princess Bride.
That's cool.
And that's how she kept herself awake until she got found and stayed alive. So Princess Bride saved a person's life. So he said it gave him chills when he heard that story.
That's awesome. That is really cool.
I do have to give a shout out to Star Wars and Godfather too, but Princess Bride is always more fun to talk about.
That's fair. I like your other choices too. Favorite band?
Oh man. Oh, well, if I have to choose one, it's going to be the Beatles.
Oh, great choice.
It's with a I have to give a nod to Bruce Springsteen, Billy Joel, and U2 in there also. But the Beatles, there's you listen to albums, and there's always songs you want to skip past, and the Beatles hardly ever had any of those. And it was just, I mean, like, I would listen to entire albums where it's just like, damn, this was, and I've had the opportunity to see Paul McCartney a couple times, and it's just 3-hour show where it mixes in Beatles and his own solo stuff, and it's just like, wow, just wow. Yeah, the Beatles are incredible. Springsteen, there is nothing that matches a 3.5-hour Bruce Springsteen show. I mean, the guy's 70 and he's still playing 3.5 hours. And
Dude,
it's just,
I went to, in July, I went to Weezer, Fall Out Boy, and Green Day. And Green Day, they're all like 50 years old. And Billy Joe Armstrong is still like it was my first time to go to a Green Day concert. They've been my favorite band since I was a kid. And Billy Joe Armstrong was just still like psychotic and entertaining as all get out. And it's like, this dude is 50 years old and is just like, he's just an entertainer. And it was just like, it was so fun. But like, Springsteen has 20 years on him. So like, goodness.
And he's up there with the guitar, and he's just killing it. And he closes with his War Horses, where you can't be, where he can't fake the energy at that point. And it's just incredible. Billy Joel, I love him too, but he sits at a piano and he could do
Yeah.
that, and they're about the same age. But yeah, those guys. But yeah, the Beatles. I do kick myself. The last time Paul McCartney came out, he played Dodger Stadium. We had a conflict, so we couldn't get tickets. And it turned out that like Ringo Starr came out and played a few songs
No
with them.
way.
Yeah, I'm sitting there. I'm like, and it was at Dodger Stadium where I think it was like on the 50th anniversary of the Dodgers playing. I'm sorry, the Beatles playing their second to last concert at Dodger Stadium.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, it's utterly incredible. That concert, the 1966 concert, was only 30 minutes. So
Oh wow.
yeah, when Paul McCartney played, it was pushing 3 hours, and it was just incredible. So I kicked myself for that one, but I've gotten to see a few really good shows over the years. A couple hundred good shows.
Awesome. All right. Favorite adult beverage?
Cerveza. I love that. Somebody with George Lopez recently said, "There's no better buzz than a beer buzz, because you have to work to get it and maintain it." So
Yeah.
I did recently get turned on to whiskey, which
Okay.
I tried a real good Japanese, like a real good, you can't get this in the United States, Japanese whiskey. When I was sat there, I was like, oh my God, this is just incredible. Incredible. A friend of mine told me that he has a bottle. I sent him, he's a big whiskey guy. I sent him a picture. I said, "Have you ever had this?" He goes, "Oh yeah, I've got a bottle of it. Next time you come over, we have to have we have to have one." So
awesome. Favorite TV show?
All time? Or currently?
Give me all time.
All time, it's a tie between Seinfeld and Friends.
Very nice.
Cheers is in there too. Currently, I just watched Squid Game.
Oh man,
Squid Game just blew my mind.
I haven't finished it yet, but it is
okay. I won't say anything.
Well, and part of the reason I haven't finished it yet is like it's so dark and like mind blowing that like I can't watch more than an episode or two really without just being like just completely messed up. Like, so I've been taking my time to watch it. I think I'm on episode 6 now.
Oh, okay. Well, it's it's good. The next 3 are the next 3 or 4 are fantastic. When you get to number, you got to let me know when you finish, because I'd love to. Every time somebody finishes it, I want to have conversation, because it's kind of like it goes beyond Breaking Bad, which the Breaking Bad and The Sopranos are kind of like that. Those shows that just kind of like pushed the envelope and made things made dark entertainment. And I just but yeah, this one goes even beyond it, and I don't even mind how are you watching it with the dubbed English or with the subtitles? Okay, I don't even mind it.
Subtitles.
Oh, okay. You might want to try an episode with the dubbed English.
Okay.
It's not. I thought I was going to have a trouble with it, and if you watched any of the Bruce Lee kung fu movies from the 70s, where they have the dubbed in English, it works.
Okay. Cool. All right, last 2 questions. Favorite defensive player and favorite offensive player, and you can give me now and all time.
Okay. Favorite defensive player is Aaron Donald. I mean, he is just an absolute beast. I love watching him play. I love that he plays for my team, so I can watch him every weekend.
Who is number 45 for the Rams right now?
Oh my God, I got to look him up.
Defensive lineman. I was watching the game. I guess that was Sunday night, and he had a couple of plays where he put a move on one of the offensive linemen. And I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
And part of that is just like, it's the Aaron Donald effect. You have to double Aaron Donald, and they've got talent everywhere else on that defensive line too, that like you got to pick your poison. And if you don't pick Aaron Donald, you're kind of dumb. But
I can hardly wait to see Von Miller healthy and him and Leonard Floyd getting single coverage, because they're still going to double up Aaron Donald, and Aaron Donald will still kind of, break through and wreck the thing. So I love Aaron Donald all time. Oh God. I'm a huge LT fan, Lawrence Taylor, with Michael Singletary right behind them. LT just changed the game. I mean, he was just, I heard a story about how Parcells, who is very much a taskmaster with everybody except for LT. He let him get away with whatever he wanted to up to a certain point, where he felt like he was hurting the team, but he let him get away because he knew that he had abilities and genius to his game that he couldn't that couldn't be matched. And Mike Singletary, I love that they always put the close-up camera on him, and his eyes just, as the play was coming, his eyes just, kind of like slanted, and he just went into like another world of just, just phenomenal. Favorite player now? Oh gosh. It's hard. I love quarterbacks. It's probably, I don't know how politically correct it is, but I do love Aaron Rodgers. So I'm coming with the Aarons. I love the genius that he plays with. I think it's incredible. I also just, gosh, I mean, I love Mahomes. I know he's going through a rough patch right now, but it's funny. I think people who are kind of like talking about him saying they've figured him out. It reminds me of probably about 7-8 years ago. They were talking about Brady being done.
Yeah.
He had like 2 or 3 rough games. And then, in fact, I remember I had him on one of my teams, and this one buddy of mine, in fact, my co-commissioner was on my case. I got to trade. He wanted to trade me Andy Dalton. And he wanted me to give him a running back. And he's like, yeah, he goes, Brady's done. And I said, no, just patience, paciencia. He's not done. And then like the next game, he threw 400 yards, and it was like that, that discussion was over. All time, it's, I don't know if you've ever seen highlights of Earl Campbell, Houston Oilers.
Okay. Yeah.
He is one of the most physically just imposing and just destructive running backs of all time. I mean, I think Derrick Henry was on his way to leading the NFL in rushing 3 years in a row, and the last time it was done was Earl Campbell in his first 3 years in the NFL, just with Eric Dickerson right behind him, because Eric Dickerson just a 6'3", 220-pound running back who could run like a sprinter. Just incredible. Incredible.
All right, Jorge, this was awesome, and we talked a lot of baseball, which is a new addition to Kollectiv Knowledge. So first off, thank you so much for coming on. I had a blast getting to know about you and your history with fantasy football and sports in general. So before we go and wrap it up, where can people find you? It's right there if you haven't been paying attention. And what are you working on, and what do you want to plug?
Well, I mean, Shane, thank you so much. As we say in Spanish, es fue un gran placer. It was such a pleasure to be on here. Thank you again for the invite. You can find me at Jorge Martin 17 on Twitter. That's where I push out all our content. I'd love it if you guys could check out our Familia FFB YouTube channel. And you can also go to Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Just put Familia FFB, and we're there.
Podcasts.
Oh yeah, we're on Apple. We're also on Anchor. So if you go to Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, that's where you can find us. Just put Familia FFB on there, and we will give you fantasy football con sabor latino.
I love it. Awesome, man. Again, appreciate you coming on. Make sure you guys, if you like tonight's show, like and subscribe to the Fantasy Football Collective YouTube page. Follow us on Twitter at FF_collective. That's KOLLECTIV. And the audio-only version will come out on the Fantasy Nightcap, which is at Fantasy Nightcap. And I am your host, Shane Barrett. at FF Shane B. And ladies and gentlemen, this has been Collective Knowledge. Cheers.